just very briefly, again, kind of returning to just a little bit of the developmental approach through the proportional reasoning. And then what we're going to do next is kind of a planning exercise for a lesson that is yet to come. Okay? So, a few things to kind of keep in mind here. It's interesting, you're teaching a 12th grade population, and they've had the content of proportional reasoning before in their lives. Whether or not they digested and mastered it is a different question, but they've had this. So you in your classrooms, if they figure out that they might say, oh, maybe this is one of those things where I say this times this equals that times that, or I set up a proportion or whatever, right? So you do have some challenges and some decisions that you make about how and when you might be having students share something like that. And how do you assess whether kids have problems setting up the fractions of that proportion, right? Because in some ways the material in sections 1 through 3 is more about helping them think about the proportion so that they understand this should grow as this grows, right? And other notes is that, so the material starts off kind of pushing them to be able to think about and understand unit fractions, pushing into, okay, if you know a unit fraction, could you figure out the whole? If you know the whole, can you find out a fraction of it, right? So there's some exercises that maybe some of you have done with them. My inclination is to say that the 12th graders I know that I taught in New York City Public Schools, you know what, they could have used twice as much time on the fractions as this curriculum is giving you. Okay, so there's different challenges there for how but we know that's a challenge on us for the rest of the year. We have 1 year to try to address topics that range from 5th and 6th grade math up through mastery of 9th grade algebra and a little more, right? So we know we have a lot. Okay, so there's a lot of push on the use of tables. Okay, a lot of problems where we're encouraging them to let tables become something where they can kind of test something out. Okay, so there might be problems around recipes, right? You're given a recipe for 6 people and you need to cook for 12 people, or you know, that kind of a problem. So there's a bunch of items to figure out how much of that do I need. Okay. So tables, can they get ownership of using tables so that we know a lot of different problems where them being able to use tables as a tool can be an incredibly strong step forward for them, right? Yeah.
I'm not, my daughter's in 6th grade.
Okay.
Their first unit is ratio and proportions. And I'm not kidding you. What I'm doing one day in class, she's doing at home with the tables, and she's doing the same thing with the graphing exercise. She had to show proportion and ratio on the graph. And the tables also. So she called me one night. I wasn't home. I was a parent-teacher, open school, and she had a problem where she had to create a table. And I started her on the table. She did every single number, 1, 2, 3, and the whole purpose is to go for 1 unit. And I was teaching the same thing in class. Going back, it's ironic when you say 5th or 6th grade. Same thing in Common Core right now. She's doing exactly what I'm doing in here in a classroom, but without the expanded questions. It's ironic what you're saying.
Okay, and you know, I've pulled these problems from several different sources, and so I wouldn't be surprised if there's links from, you know, there's a woman named Susan Lamont who has a book on teaching kind of fractions, ratios, and proportions, and it's an excellent piece of material, right? So that was one of the really critical sources as we worked through this, okay? Okay, so when do they finally get into setting up proportions. They get to it in section 4 of the PR unit. Okay, so again, just to kind of confirm for you that it's there, it's happening. Okay, and then there's a problem with a couple of different kids working with it some different ways and letting them kind of critique those methods. So that's section 4. Okay. Now, we're also suggesting that you could take an option of skipping section 5 in PR. Okay. In PR, section 5 goes a little bit more into some geometry. Let's see. PR section 5, it goes into some geometric scaling. Okay, so it goes into similarities. Okay, it goes into a little bit of some right triangle trig. Okay, so those are topics that, again, it could be the kind of thing where if you have a few more advanced students, as you're going into 4, you could suggest to them that they play around a little bit with the materials in 5, and you yourself could feel that you don't have to feel, as we deal with our pacing issues, section 5 could be something that you say, you know what, I'm gonna skip this for now. Okay? When we're thinking about compass prep, those topics could be kind of, it's just thinking about, I know we've had a lot of different calendar struggles, and material struggles, so.
This is not in compass?
Pardon?
This section is not in compass.
It's right, it's not. Compass does not go into, they're doing algebra and pre-algebra is what they have to be able to pass in order to get out of remedial coursework. Okay? Yes?
But if a student does test out while taking the test, aren't they introduced to the trigonometry topic?
Yes.
Because I had a student who had that situation twice last year. Both times she sat, she tested out, and she was always given the trig topics, and that's where she stumbled.
So if she got everything else correct, she should have been testing out of remedial.
She did test out of
Great.
remedial.
So I'm not kind of saying that this is a population of students who should never see geometric scaling. Like, I think that's an important topic. I'm just kind of saying for people who are having some pacing challenges right now, and many are, right? We have different situations, that is a topic that you could end up just making some more choice about. That's kind of just what I'm saying, right? I think scaling is a really important idea in life, in buying the couch, or in lots of different things, right? And so I don't mean to demean the topic, but okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about some pacing questions and issues as we get past lunch. But now, let's see. So again, I just put at the note at the bottom, some of your students go directly to the proportion. Are they sometimes setting up the proportion incorrect? So then, would sometimes a table have helped? That's a little bit of, and it's a little bit of a tug of war. It's a little bit of a tug with our students. We have to figure out how we handle that. Anybody want to share something about how they are addressing that? So kids want to go to the writing the proportion. They've done them before, but they set them up wrong. What do we do? What do you do as teachers to kind of help them step back into, here, think about this table. Anybody have any thoughts to share on that? Anybody? Yes.
Everything you tell them to look at what objects go on top, like x over y equal x over y. Because a lot of times students put x over y equal y over x. You change them and then that is wrong.
So it's a little bit of the analogy. If they can do the analogy, right? Then thinking about that, yeah?
Basically, when I teach is instead of having 3 fractions, instead of having 2 fractions, I have 3 fractions. And the first one is like feet per minute is in words.
Feet per minute.
So the feet goes on top, the minute goes on the bottom, and they need to continue that pattern.
Uh-huh.
And that helps you visualize a little bit, if it says feet, you're not write it on the wrong side. Or if it says minute, you're not write it on the wrong side. So basically, it keeps them
That
focused.
can be a little bit of a tool again, and that could be something that's useful when you get to section 4, or we can think about how do we, again, help our students who already have some of this as a route, okay? Okay, so here's where we're going next. Okay, planning forward. Okay, what we want to do right now is, I'm trying to think about whether groups of 3 might be more useful. I'll let your group, your table decide. If you want to maybe actually make this groups of 3, we have a lot of tables with 6 at it, okay? So, here's what I'm going to be asking you to do. So we took a chance, we took some time to have you talk about a lesson you taught yesterday, right? Now what we want to do is have you look forward to a lesson that you're going to be teaching. Okay? Now, you're in different places, so for one of you, this could be the lesson you're teaching tomorrow, but for your partner, it might be a lesson they're not going to teach for 2 weeks. But make sure it's a lesson that is forward for everyone, either in your pair or trio. Does that make sense? Okay? So, you spend a little time picking out what lesson you think you want to spend some time thinking about. Now, I'm passing out a 2-page kind of guide that is questions. There you go. Okay. Andrew, can you probably not get that? They're not stated, but they're 2 parts, okay? Okay, so please go ahead and just take a look at this. This is what we're asking you to walk through as you plan. Just get it on my hand. We need one more. Okay. Okay, so here's what I'm going to be asking you to kind of use as a tool as you walk through your lesson plan. And you might have different tools, so I'm kind of asking you to just walk through the exercise of these questions. First of all, you're being asked to, when you pick a lesson, do the math, or at least a good sampling of the math on it. Okay? So before you start planning it, go ahead and look at it and do the math. Okay? For some of you, for many of you, as long as you're doing a sampling through that set, right? That'll probably suffice. Okay? And then, what are the central math topics? So have a conversation with your partner about how you might label the big idea of the mathematics. Okay? And so as you look on this, that is question number 2, right? Question number 2 is, what are the mathematical concepts, strategies, applications, big ideas of this lesson? Okay? What do you anticipate as tools for students and struggles that students will have? Okay, so box 3 has a few different questions, okay, for you to kind of think about in terms of what do you want to be thinking about? How do we anticipate the struggles that students are going to have, and what might that mean about the lesson we would plan? Okay. Number 4 on the second page is more detail about, okay, now how do you see yourself implementing that lesson? Okay? What are the choices that you'll make? You might be designing a warm-up for that lesson. You might be designing an exit task for that lesson. You might be thinking about a mini lesson of some sort before you set kids out to work on their own. Okay? What are particular questions that you want to be asking, either while students are working or maybe in some kind of a group discussion? Assessment. What might be an informal way that you're assessing in the middle of this lesson, right? So what are you looking to see? Are there a few students that it's always helpful to kind of check on to say, well, you know what, this person is often struggling with this, or this person's always flying through this, right? What does it mean to perhaps be assessing a little bit through in that lesson as to how they're doing? Assessment might be more than just collecting an exit ticket at the end of the class, right? What do we assess? Does it mean that there's some kind of a mini conversation that happens in the middle of class to help them and go back to kind of thinking and working about the problems? And then finally, just some decisions about pacing. After looking through what you have, what will be your choices about what you think reasonable pacing is? The material gives you some pacing. This is a fresh draft material. You may have some better ideas about what you think are reasonable amounts of time for your students in working through something like this, okay? Do you think one of these is reasonable as a homework or not? Do you feel like the problems in this require a little bit too many kind of teacher questions along the way, and that homework might be practicing something else? Or is there a problem set that you think could work as homework? Okay? So this is a little bit of the guide that I'm asking you to walk through as you and your partners, one or two, work on planning a lesson. So first you're going to be trying to pick something out, do the math, and then start into the plan. Okay? Okay. Go ahead.
Say again?
We work in groups of 3 or 2 or
You get to
whatever.
pick 2 or 3.
So what's the-
Okay, good.
Well, I think that was the,
Whoever is first.
it has to be the same one as long as the pictures are all.
Well, so how far this along?
I just like the Bible, probably.
One less than
Yeah,
Like 3.4, is that what you are?
Are you guys a group? And then you'll be a group?
So 3.24.
Yeah.
Does that exist?
3.21.
That's fine.
3.32. 3.33.
Is there anybody else
Did
that has
3.2.
Well,
Anybody else who has not worked on it?
actually, I want to be starting, but because we all talk about 3.1.
But you know what?
3.1. No, this is, excuse me, 3.3. Page 153.
It's just,
3.3.
okay. It's just that other people can't ask the conversation with us. If you want to, we can already Oh, I'm confused now. So maybe you guys don't feel like don't go here. So we have that part, I think. Or you could. Okay, very good. And then Sherry, you're where each of you are.
Yeah, I come to find out it's easier to see what they're going to do. There's a lot of it is missing, yeah.
So what's the problem set with someone who's totally ignorant?
So if you go to, looks like 46.
46.
Oh, wait a minute, no, 40. Well, 45 starts first. What starts problem set 1? 45?
I don't know.
Wait, I want to.
Oh, okay.
Is there an extra? Yeah, you're right.
food pantry? Yeah, downstairs.
I started yesterday.
Yes.
I started
Well, it said, do the prompt said, I read the teacher notes under, so we're gonna page 1 to 4.
You mean the three things that we.
Oh, they give me original.
We do, we just don't have a person.
Okay, you have a teacher. I'm sharing this with you and then you're sharing this. Well, we're gonna do the problem set here, but they said also.
Okay.
Teachers set up numbers for them. Thank you.
So it's all the time to get a phone. That should be sure. Depending on how they turn it, it's definitely not exactly. Let me download the app. No, they take it out and I tell them to take it out. If it's a lot of things other than that, I tell them to I confiscate it. I don't have phones.
So we showed them that, like, I had a team, and to see this where I figure with, and I think
I found that when you go to this part set, you should do this. Yes. So this one, I broke out I cut it out, I actually had that. Without one here, I had to split it out into a lot of mistakes on such. So this one, they had to explain why why they were wrong. We all know they're wrong. Just tell me what were they, what made them and that's what Actually, agrees with you. She sounds right. She sounds right, but it doesn't really make sense.
Like an outflash has like
For everyone, she's 1 in 30. You know what, I'm gonna
It's for later, right?
So that's basically what I'll teach them before I.
You have the laptop?
Okay.
I want to take a stand.
So,
So,
no, you're good. This is it. This is my last copy. I can order.
I have lots of extras.
You have lots of extras.
I have lots of extras. So, whenever you run
What do I have
a
to do to get them from you?
all you have to do is send the courier to my school. You can have them tomorrow.
Okay. And you said you have extras also?
No, I have extras.
Okay, so maybe I'll send out some feelers for people who have extras.
No, you can take mine now. They're literally in the box.
That's right. You have too many.
I have too many. I put in the new order number, and even that number, I think I might need to decrease.
Okay.
I think I'll bring down 25 because I have 22 kids.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we can even find a way if you can courier straight to the school that maybe needs extras, sort of thing. Well, food for thought. Thanks for letting me know, yeah.
Yeah, the one is the zero.
We're starting off with problem 7.
50 kids in one
Right.
class. I don't teach how to
And have they given us like any doesn't make sense to just go right.
You told them or did we have to do them?
Yeah, so this is the program in my class. He does have more space. They still not enough? Okay. So that's the feature. So you can actually, if you want to make it survey, you can put it on.
Just,
Unit Friday.
Yeah, Unit Friday.
Preparing it next year.
How many people did the team? Everyone.
I have the graphic. You did project. Because my
I think they would do better. I did a team.
Yes, you know. I think my kids will go there.
I don't think mine's will. I think mine was
They will use the unit price because they send something similar.
Yeah, so it makes the they enjoyed it actually. They tried to create more.
All right, so.